Welcome to The Beam, where curiosity stirs conversations, taking us a step further into the future we desire. Here, we bring you the issues that matter and the voices that inspire. I am Sunes Nathaniel, and today we're going to be bringing you a very, very important discussion. But before we get into that discussion, let us bring you our spotlight for today. And it centers around a very pressing issue that many of us have been talking about and we need solutions to. Perhaps maybe technology might give us a solution or political will prevail. After this, we'll be back with our conversations. Don't go away. It promises to be highly, highly insightful. Stay with us. In Abuja, the notorious crime called One Chance has long been feared. Criminals posing as commercial drivers, robbing passengers before dumping them on the roadside. But today, we reveal a disturbing evolution where the robbery doesn't end with stolen cash or phones. It becomes a moving kidnap, a high-speed trap where your very identity is hijacked. Once inside, victims are held captive long enough for the gang to force them to unlock their phones. And then, using Nigeria's instant loan apps, the criminals take loans in the victim's name, cashing out before the terrified passenger is even released.
I shouted from the road where I was, area 8, and the car was actually about moving before I shouted and they stopped. So I ran to the vehicle. I said area 8 again. They said, "You have change?" I said, "Yes, I have 500 naira." It's okay, enter. So there was a guy sitting close to the passenger side. So as soon as I opened the vehicle and entered, he shifted for me towards the other side. So as soon as I entered, I noticed the glasses were winding up. So I was trying to look around and it was, everything just happened so fast. So, and the guy in front came up with a knife, a jackknife, and was coming directly to me as if he was going to stab me on my chest. So I was not shouting. The one who shifted for me now tapped me with a gun and said, "Madam, the only thing that will save you here is cooperation. If you don't cooperate, we'll just kill you and push you out and nobody will know." So at that point, immediately he said that, the one that came with jackknife now tied my face, tied my hand, and they bent me over under the back chair where I was, and they covered me. Both of them covered me, and the vehicle was moving. I didn't know where they were moving to, but they grabbed my bag and my phone, and they started asking me questions, my BVN number, my NIN, my account details, and how many banks do I operate, where do I work, what level am I, and all that.
The things I saw before, they tied our eyes and our hands and overpowered us and started torturing us, beating us up and asking us to cooperate. They were saying so many things that if we don't cooperate, that they would send us to Baba, then Baba house, and Baba will use our body for rituals, they will use our organs, stuff like that. So out of fear, we gave them our password and stuff. So they now opened their phone, collected all the whole money in our accounts, in my account. They collected all the whole money in my account and went ahead to borrow loan. And even the loan own, I didn't even know that they already did that, because I think when they opened my app, they saw my BVN and all. So that was where they got the information from.
With just a smartphone and a minimal check, these loan apps can approve and transfer money in minutes. It's a system designed for convenience, but one that the criminals now weaponize.
I think there must be a stricter compliance or checks on the part of the CBN to be able to say who is asking for this loan and for what he or she is needing that for. And of course, we have the data, we have the technicality, we have technology, such that we know when we ask for loans, it entails that you need to ask for your NIN, which is NIN, your national identity number. And of course, sometimes you need to look at the history of such individual that's asking for the loans. And most importantly, most of these financial or loan agents request for KYC, that's know your customers. And I think they don't want to get these cases 24 hours. So I think with that number of time that is given, it's enough time to be able to at least do the KYC.
prevention is the first defense.
What we are doing in the rush hour now, we have bus stop policing strategies. The moment people are closing from work, we have our plainclothes operative and patrol team positioned around bus stop. What we want to appeal to people is that they should try as much as possible to use designated bus stops where they bought vehicle. When you see people standing alone looking for fast vehicle, they fall into the hands of this criminal. And this is the challenge we're having.
But in a city with no clearly marked transport system, the question is, how many people even know where these designated stops are? Until technology demands more than a 4-digit PIN to open a financial life, and until Abuja commuters have a safe, reliable transport network, stepping into the wrong vehicle could mean you lose more than your valuables. It could mean losing even a future. Soonest Nathaniel. Welcome back. Corruption in Nigeria is not just a word, it's a system. It shares, plays, and shapes our economy, determines who gets justice, and decides who prospers and who struggles. But what if technology, specifically blockchain, could change that story? What if transparency was built into our financial and governance system? Joining me now is someone who has dedicated his work to the possibility. Alex Umai. He's a megatronic system engineer, entrepreneur, and founder of GrubChain. Alex, you're welcome to the beam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure having you here. Let's get right into it. You know, corruption is that very important issue that has set us back for years now. And then the question is, for instance, GITEX is on today. It's one of the biggest tech and innovation events. Why should a thing like blockchain be a major issue that we are discussing today, even at GITEX?
Well, first of all, corruption is a very unfortunate thing, and it's sad to see Nigeria be kind of sitting in the sweet spot. However, let's dive into what the blockchain is. It's a public ledger of transactions, right, that anybody anywhere can go and see. There's a big concept of decentralized systems whereby no one single entity or government owns the computers or the infrastructure in which the database of transactions occurs, right, or occur. And so what you have is a distributed system whereby there's no single point of failure. There's no such thing as somebody coming to tell you like, oh, our banking systems are down, you can't process transactions, you can't view your assets, and all of that, right? So with the blockchain, or with that, comes visibility. Right, I can see what transactions happen on the blockchain as they happen, I can see where value is transferred to, right, and by that way it's secure, it's transparent, it creates trust.
Yeah, so in building this trust per se, like you said, you know, we are ranked as one of those corrupt nations, fraud, all those things. How would a thing like blockchain in itself, you know, directly attack, you know, these corruption cases that we have? For instance, say maybe if somebody had to do building projects, road projects, how would blockchain come to play a role there?
So one thing I forgot to add is that the data on the blockchain is immutable, right? So that means you can't actually go and change the transactions that have occurred on the blockchain. So what I think can actually happen here, if I were to design a system, right, it would be that I would create like wallet addresses for the government accounts, and I would be able to trace where every single allocation goes, right? So if the government is executing project XYZ, right, they now have a system in place whereby they can register their transactions there. They can also transact at near speed of light, basically have from what
thing that if the government, we want to be a responsible government, we want people to understand what we're doing, then they should be able to create wallets of that nature to say, hey, this is how we're spending, and we're not going to alter it, because that's what the blockchain would do.
Absolutely. Well, they can't alter it. It's the nature of the blockchain. Nobody can go and alter it, right? So you can have a very, you can have a trust system.
All right, so there's a race then when it comes to the blockchain movement in the world today. And then the question becomes, why should we position ourselves now? You know, what is at stake as a nation when it comes to that race, you know, to making sure that we have our digital assets and all the rest?
Well, the blockchain think of it this way: it's like the next generation of financial technology, right? Do we want to fall behind while the rest of the world adopts this technology? That's the question I would ask, right? So I think we need to invest in builders. Nigeria has a strong or a large number of youth population who are talented, right? They can build unimaginable things. We need to invest in the people building these. Now, building these. It cascades into several other things. For example, I could have builders who create the next billion-dollar companies, for example. Those could come out of here in Nigeria, right? That stimulates the economy. That creates jobs. That positions us as the giant of Africa that we claim to be.
So where does a thing like blockchain come into play? I mean, for instance, we're talking payment systems, and then people will say, hey, we're already transacting here in Nigeria. We have some of these bank apps and all the rest. What does blockchain bring to the fore that is different, that can really change the game when it comes to finances, basically?
Well, at blockchain, we're building payment systems that allow users to spend their digital assets, right? We're using this as an entry point to onboard the next billion users onto crypto or blockchain, as you might have it, right? And with that comes financial inclusion, right? There are so many aspects of the blockchain that, or let's say the economy in general, that is inaccessible to the common man. Right? With the blockchain, you can be able to create systems that allow people in remote communities access financial tools. And I'll give you an example. A farmer somewhere in, let's say, Maiduguri, just as an example, can access loans on decentralized financial platforms without having to worry about, how do I transport myself to a bank? And when I get to the bank, are they going to look at my face because, I'm or you can have on the blockchain and you can access global economy. Right? I can use tools built by developers in Korea. I can use tools built by developers in America. So that's what the blockchain presents. It presents the opportunity to create a more inclusive system that is fair to everybody.
So you think if we're going to that digital economy, then we have to be able to leverage on blockchain technology?
Absolutely.
For instance, now, if the nation move to blockchain technology. For instance, we just had the American, president, do the whole GDPs. I think it was the second one, GDP on Ethereum or something like that.
Yeah.
What does such a thing do for a nation? And can we do it here in Nigeria, seeing that we are not the same population, we're not the same people?
Yeah, we can do it. There's nothing stopping us from doing it. And what you're referring to is the U.S. government basically published GDP data on the blockchain.
Yes.
And back to the concept of data. Right? So it's accurate data, it's verified data, it's on the blockchain, it's publicly accessible. We can do that as well. We can put our numbers on the blockchain for anybody to go and see.
But the fear is that there might be a more developed nation and have more people that understand blockchain. How do we bring it home to make sure that the average citizen understands this?
Education. We invest in people who would actually educate us, and we have to stop being so
uptight
about it. It's just technology. Everything that we use today is technology. This is technology. The blockchain is technology.
So again, we have to go back into what really does the blockchain do that many other tech cannot do for us. For instance, the question will come: how does blockchain transform Nigeria in such a way that we can move from oil dependence to a tech-driven powerhouse? How does that happen?
There are many things there, actually. There's stuff like Bitcoin mining. We can have companies invest in the infrastructure to mine Bitcoin, which is a digital asset of tremendous value, right? You can have remittances being done on the blockchain, right? Permissionlessly. You can have money flow from Nigerians in diaspora, bring it back to the local economy and stimulate growth.
All right, let me hold that thought. We're going to come back to that thought. You're watching The Beam, a place where the old is reckoned with and the new is brought into fore. The future is redefined here. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more questions for Alex. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm in conversation with Alex Wamai, founder and CEO of Blockchain. And today we're not just talking coins and crypto. We're looking at how blockchain can help transition Nigeria to be a digital powerhouse. I mean, we're talking digital economy. economy. So let's talk as to how does the thing like blockchain build, public confidence? How does it go further to build, investor confidence? What does it say to the rest of the world if we start to invest in blockchain? I mean, from now, really, really invest.
Okay, so the Nigerian economy, I heard Nigerian reserves have increased to about $41 billion, right? But now I'm not saying that that's not information that I can trust. But how do I actually, if I wanted to verify that, what do I do? Right? Probably no way that I can verify that information. So there's still no trust. I mean, put our data on blockchain, right? Assets on blockchain, and it if we come to Nigeria, we can actually take it out because the country does have reserves that it says it has. So, visibility, trust, economic growth. These are things that the blockchain creates.
And so, you still speaking about this. How do we have things? Maybe deals, maybe regulations. What kind of things should we start seeing the nation move towards if we need to really get to that point where we are really operating on a blockchain that really serves purpose? Effective policy and the right regulations or the right regulations. So I'm going to point out the Investment and Securities Act of 2025, which was signed by the president in March of 2025, right? There's a blanket classification of digital assets as securities, all digital assets. Now, I think, in my opinion, I think that's a lazy approach. Reason being, with tokens or blockchain assets, as you might call them, they have different classes. There's what you call utility tokens, probably also known as meme coins. They're different from stable coins. A meme coin is not a security, it's just a utility token. Maybe you get extra perks for using it, but it's not something that would actually create investment value. And so that regulation actually puts investors or blockchain enthusiasts at risk, because now you're saying a meme coin is an investment opportunity. And what usually happens, there's so many meme coins that have rug pulled people, and that's why you keep hearing people say crypto is a scam, crypto is a scam, crypto is a scam. So we need to come out with clear regulations that treat digital assets on a functional basis. What is the difference between a stable coin, a utility token, and whatever other classes of digital assets that exist out there? So regulation is where it boils down to how the operations work. Okay, let's just circle back a bit more. When we talk about payment options, are we saying that the only thing that blockchain does is just basically speed and to have some securities? What happens to data use? Because I'm guessing some other persons are thinking, hey, data use is possible, that this thing is going to take a lot of data. Are there solutions that says, hey, we might be able to run transactions without data?
Absolutely. I have a bunch of friends who are actually building tools that allow people move assets using text messaging systems. And so when you think about the implications of such technologies, a farmer who has just a simple flip phone, for example, that doesn't have access to the internet, but just has access to the cellular network or cell signal, can actually still move his assets. There's no impediment or barriers to controlling assets. That's such tools you can actually blockchain.
So, we've been talking benefits, and I like to play the devil's advocate usually when it comes to this. What will be the downside? What will be the thing we need to fear if we're transitioning into blockchain and that technology? What should we be afraid of?
I'm actually thinking. I'm going to speak about GrubChain. So the reason behind building GrubChain as a payment solution that allows digital asset owners to spend their assets directly is because the other alternative to accessing your digital asset as fiat, which you can then spend, is going through riddled with a lot of scams. I have a lot of friends, a lot of people. You can experiment, go and ask somebody, have you ever been scammed on a P2P? They'll probably say yes, right? So what happens is I pay somebody the digital asset and then they never remit my funds back to me, right? And so those are some of the issues that happen, like peer-to-peer scams. I talked about meme coins, for example, which are notorious for like rug pulling people. So basically they come to you with this promise of, hey, we've launched this meme coin and you're going to make 10x, 100x, and then they end up using you as exit liquidity, which means once you put your money there, whoever the scammer is who has launched said token, once he gets his target, he just pulls out all the liquidity, and then now you're left with nothing. So that's a risk.
That possible.
Yeah, and so back to my point on regulation. This is why it's important for the right regulations to be established that tells users or enthusiasts, hey, this is a utility token. This is not a security.
Now, beyond that, in just 1 minute before we just leave, we were talking off camera about some of the extra things that we can do when it comes to blockchain, especially when it comes to the young people and talent and creativity. Where does blockchain come into helping grow that, that economy that has to do with creativity? How does it play?
Look, crypto has a global reputation. Millions, in fact, billions of people all around the world are going to use crypto tools, right? We can position our youth as the lead builders, as the thought leaders, as the experts, right? And we can enable them to earn money from other sources, from outside the country. We create job opportunities for them. We create economic opportunities for them. We create economic freedom, financial freedom. We can do that. And we can also position Nigeria as a powerhouse when it comes to building tools like
How does that work for somebody who may be an artist or a poet when it comes to blockchain, basically?
So, property on the blockchain, and you can track ownership, right? And you can also track things like royalties. Let's talk about artists. Like, our musicians selling numbers, right? But they still have to go through a middleman to get their rewards, right? I talked about a platform called Zora, which basically allows every creator, or which basically allows you to make posts like you would on Instagram, but tokenize those posts, right? So the value that you end up getting depends on market interest. So what that means is, if a lot of people are interested in your creation and they purchase that, then you get fair value, right? You're not relying on a middleman or a centralized platform like Facebook or TikTok to determine your earnings. And mind you, there's a huge difference in the amount that creators here in Africa get versus creators in America get, right? So there's no fairness there. What the blockchain creates is a level playing ground for a creator to be a creator. It does not matter where you are from.
All right. Alex Wamai, thank you very much for bringing your vision and clarity on the program today.
Thank you for having me. This was an interesting conversation.
All right, that's it on The Beam. We'll be leaving you as always with our top 5 videos of the week. I am Soonest Nathaniel, and as always, we urge you, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep beaming your light where it matters the most. May this nation continue to rise and flourish. Bye for now. This week we begin our countdown with the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, dismissing concerns over the non-usage of beavers in the River State LG polls. Coming forth on our list, we hear some PDP chieftains speaking on how zoning that is driven by selfish interest will bury the opposition party in Nigeria.
As far as this country. Yeah, but they are doing it because of the sea.
In third place, we see governors of the People's Democratic Party and the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, even as they insist on a November 15th convention. Coming second on our list is an interview in which lawyer and rights advocate Deji Adeyanju says he will vote Tinubu if the opposition presents Mr. Peter Obi for presidency 2027.
Why will somebody like me, God forbid that I support APC, support APC for what?
But you said you'd rather give your vote to Mr. Tinubu.
If the opposition presents Peter Obi, I will vote Tinubu. Because we cannot have a situation where people, a man who leads a mob that terrorizes people online, that cannot tolerate criticism, that calls people that does not support their candidate, is an enemy of Nigeria.
In first place on our countdown this week, we see a video in which South African opposition leader Julius Malema asserts that African salvation lies in the hands of Africans, not in the hands of the world powers.
Taking fellow Africans diverts anger from the real enemy, and we must educate our people that unity, not division, is the solution to the African crisis.
That's it on our countdown today. Join us next week for more.